we asked our viewers, at what point does the police department become responsible for officers' actions? Still with us, we have criminal defense attorney and protege of Johnny Cochran, Tamara A. Walker, joining us once again. Tamara, just to remind our viewers, the reason why we wanted to ask this question is because Copout took the stand today testifying that essentially the Minneapolis Police Department inadequately trained these officers, so kind of shifting some of the responsibility to the department rather than on the individual officers. So let's hear how some of our viewers responded to this. We have a comment from Valerie Wilson. Valerie said, from the first day they are hired and sworn in, accepting the oath to protect and serve, they're protected by receiving the best and most up-to-date training by law enforcement in the high-ranking chain of command. So how do you reconcile that comment from Valerie with what Copout is claiming?
Well, in any lawsuit like this, you're going to see a failure to train. I mean, that's going to be standard and par for the course. But I agree with it. I think that, you know, police forces have an obligation to make sure that officers are trained adequately at the beginning in the academy, and then throughout their service receive updated training. I think that's critically important. So I think that it's entirely fair for the lawsuit to call that into question.
Okay, well, our next comment comes from Dolores, and Dolores says at any point that police training and protocol is not followed, I assume that's when, you know, these officers should be held accountable, is what she's saying. Do you think that that's what we've seen so far out of this case, or do you think that basically these defendants have a viable argument?
Well, you know, here's the thing. I think that there are some important things that could lead to real reform here. So, as the law currently stands, if a police officer is acting within the color of duty and they're on duty, then the city is most likely going to be responsible if there's a lawsuit or a settlement reached. They're going to be the ones to pay it. In my opinion, if we change the law to make officers individually responsible, make them carry a liability claim for insurance, then you might start to see more accountability and less accidental shootings and less reckless action when the officers are actually on the line and have to pay more out of pocket. I think it becomes a little easier to, in the case of these 3 officers, not take action when you don't have any skin in the game, when there's no stakes. So I think absolutely it should be both officers and the department.
Sure, sure. You know, another thing that Copout and the defense on a whole has been arguing is that these 3 officers who were charged with kind of the lesser offenses associated with the George Floyd case, that they were also taught to be deferential to the higher ups like Derek Chauvin. I want to play a clip from Thomas Lane, one of the other defendants, from May of 2020, in which he basically articulates that. Let's listen.
What prevented you from just kind of taking charge of that and making the call?
I was basically going off Officer Chauvin's experience and what he was saying, like, we're going to hold here until EMS arrives.
Is he a supervisor?
He's not.
Okay. Was he in any sort of supervisory capacity that night? Like
No.
an acting supervisor or someone like that?
No.
He just has more years on that you.
He's 20 years on, so I mean, basically through the whole FTO process, you trust and go to your senior officers for experience and help on calls and what's the best thing to do in this situation. They give you direction and kind of you follow their lead on what you think is.
But it seems like your gut reaction was something's not right here and we need to rethink how we are restraining Mr. Floyd. Is that accurate? That's what it seems like you're saying.
Yeah. I would say I felt like it maybe could have been handled differently, or we should be reassessing what we're doing, I think is what I was kind of coming to.
Yeah, so certainly by all accounts, Derek Chauvin is the most culpable here, which is why he was convicted of murdering George Floyd. That said, do you think that there is some truth to this defense argument that these other officers were basically being deferential to this much more senior officer?
I think that they don't have much of a choice in making that argument. However, I think it's a ridiculous cop-out. And there's been countless examples through history where that type of cop-out excuse has not been accepted, nor has it worked, and it shouldn't here. This is a situation, Lane knew it was wrong. He soft-shooted in that interview, but it was very clear from the tape. He went to Chauvin repeatedly and asked him to do something different, said, shouldn't we do something? It looks like he can't breathe. He said he knew what was going on. So this is almost like, you know, when you're a kid and you do something silly because your friends did it and your parents ask you, well, if your friend jumped off a bridge with you, it's a similar type of mentality in that he knew it was wrong. And, you know, this gentleman was late dying in front of him for almost 10 minutes. He could have called the station. He could have radioed the station. He could have called for, as he pointed out, an actual supervisor. You know, so this is critically important for the actions of law enforcement all in the country, that people are held accountable. So I understand the argument. I would probably make it if I was in his attorney's shoes, but it's a cop-out.
Yeah, sure. You know, I want to share this comment from one of our viewers, Eleanor, who says, you know, at what point, the moment they're hired, as in that's when they should be held accountable, which goes in line completely with what you've been saying. I also want to just share a clip from Floyd family attorney Jeff Storms, basically saying what you are, that this is an attempt to deflect responsibility. Let's listen.
This was obviously very emotional to see the video at the end of the day for the family. But, you know, I think, you know, at this point, we're seeing what we saw played out in the trial of Chauvin, which is a lot of attempts to deflect blame away from the officer's own actions and responsibilities, and instead try to blame George for their wrongdoing. And now they're doing it with the added exclamation point of Chauvin having been both found guilty by a jury and having pleaded guilty in the case. So, you know, I think we'll expect them to not only attempt to blame George, I think you'll see them attempt to blame Chauvin throughout the trial. And I don't know that any of us are surprised by it, but obviously we're disappointed each time that there's an effort to assassinate George's character.
Yeah, and Tamara, one more comment from a viewer named Sid, who says, as soon as they're assigned to the streets, it's not just the department's responsibility to train on proper procedure, but also evaluate and ensure the proper mental fitness and temperament to be on the streets. If they fail, they should be accountable. Do you think the jury's going to agree?
I hope so, because I think that this case was such a spectacular failure that it just can't simply be tolerated. This is not something that you can say, oh, well, I wish I had done something different, like Lane said in the interview. So I definitely think in this case, they should be held accountable.
Thank you so much, Tamara A. Walker, for being with us. I'm Lim Nakrin in for Michael Ayala tonight. Up next, closing arguments with Vinnie Politan, taking a look at some of the biggest moments in the Curtis Reeves trial. Also a look ahead to the sentencing